chat in the box, but thank you so much for being here and being on time. We're just working out a couple things. Hey, you know, I'm asking for your graciousness during this pandemic. I'm on edge. I don't know about everybody else, which is one reason why I can't wait to hear what Trina is going to teach us today. But so glad you're here. We're going to do this tonight. But we just need a couple minutes. So just if you can chat and let me know that you can hear. Trina's working out stuff. Trina can be heard, but she wants to, she's a consummate professional. So she's trying to make sure her headphones block out any interference. So we're just working through that. Trina, if you want to do like a test to see if I can hear her. No, I can't hear you, honey. No, still not now. That's okay. Michelle, can you hear us? How are you doing? Where are you calling in from? I can't hear you, Michelle. If you're trying to talk, I don't. Oh, you know what? I didn't push unmute all. That could have something to do with it. Forgive me. But Trina, I could hear you before with no headphones. I can't hear you now. Michelle, I'm going to see if I can. Trina, I can hear you. Say something.
Yeah, I don't have headphones in now. I pulled the plug.
That's okay. I can hear you. But now I'm worried about Michelle. Michelle, am I doing something to hinder your experience? Can you hear us? I can't see you in the chat. Michelle, are you with us? Can you hear? But that's okay. We're going to get through this. That's the whole purpose of us being together, that we're getting through this together. But Michelle, if you can chat or give us a sign that we can hear you, put your video on and wave or something. I tell you, this whole thing has been a learning experience for me. Trina has been part of everything that can go wrong with me trying to pull this together. But Michelle, I'm so appreciative that you're here and on time. I want to make sure that everything's okay for you. I'm not an Apple person, and I'm using my husband's iPad, because one thing that's gone wrong that Trina was a witness to is like my audio cutting out on my laptop. So Michelle Green, I can see that you're there. I just can't hear you, see you. But if you're having technical difficulties, I understand those. Bear with us. What I'm going to try to do is share my screen to see if I can get my Trina. I saw that. Good evening. Fantastic.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're working, but Michelle, let us know if
Oh, I just saw a flash of Michelle. Good evening.
Did you? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yay.
Her camera's on, but she's muted.
Okay, let me see if I can unmute you, because I think that might be.
Hi.
Oh. Yay!
Yay.
Sorry, I was wrapping up another call.
No, that's fine.
That's fine.
Oh, look at your hair. I got hair envy. I love it.
Oh, God. I know, all that gray hair because I'm waiting for hair salons to open.
Look, we all got Corona hair, girl. That's happening. Listen, I'm going to ask you guys if I could take 2 seconds and just go to the loo or to the ladies, depending on what you call it. But we're here. And give me just a second. Michelle, I'm so glad we got you on. Trina, thank you so much. But I'll be right back. I just need a second because I was out trying to take advantage of, okay, the weather is, I'm in sweet. Michelle, where are you calling in from?
I am in New York City.
Woo!
Okay.
Okay, can't wait to talk to you about that. But I've been trying to take advantage of, if you know anything about Sweden, when the sun shines, you got to get your behind out there and get a little bit of sun. And that's what I've been doing. So I just like didn't time it right. Need 2 seconds in the loo or the ladies in the bathroom. But I'll be right back. When you and Trina can talk, I'm so glad you're connected. And I just need a second, but I'm so glad. But Trina, can I hear you again? Because I see you got headphones. I want to make sure we can hear you.
Okay, I think you should hear me now.
Yes. Okay, I'll
Okay.
be right back. So you ladies get to know each other. I'll be right back.
How are things, Michelle?
It's going pretty well, Trina. So nice to see you. I know that if, I think I connected with you on Zing. It was like many, many years ago.
Yes, no, I remember. I do remember.
Yeah, yeah.
But
So where are you? Are
I'm
you?
still in Germany, still in
Oh,
Germany. Yeah, yeah. I've moved a couple of times since then, but still, I mean, within the country, but I'm still
yeah.
here in Germany.
Oh, okay. What part of
Yeah.
Germany are you in right now?
I'm about an hour north of Düsseldorf, right at the Dutch border.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's about an hour north now. So we've been kind of, a little bit of involuntary nomads, let's put it that way. And
Hmm.
we settled in here about not quite 2 years ago, and are quite liking it, quite liking it.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Although definitely like it. It's small town life, small, very, very small, but there's a lot of advantages to that.
Hmm. Yeah, I can't wait to be in Europe.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, at the moment, the big question is when is everybody going to really feel safe and be able to fly?
Yeah, true. I am
But
waiting for that moment.
yeah, yeah. But let's hope it's not too far down the road.
You
Yeah, I
sound
have
like
a
you
trip
guys know each other. You guys know each other?
story.
We were just saying that we had connected like not much longer after you and I connected, Adrian, back
Uh,
on the Xing days, and we had kind
yeah.
of lost sight of one another, but we both remembered being in contact.
Yeah,
Isn't
that's
that
how I connected with you all.
Mm-hmm.
yay?
Yeah.
Michelle, wait a minute. So, okay, and Trina, I love that you said Zing because that feels like a previous life
Yeah,
almost for
yeah.
me. So, Michelle, where you were living in Europe before? Because
No, actually, I've been living in New York City, and I just have like just always had a lifelong, I don't know, desire to live in Europe. And
yes,
right, and so I was, job hunting and, trying to relocate overseas. And that's really how I found, you all as I was just, building my network.
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. So, what do you do? Like, what is your passion? Like, what would you?
Well, I'd worked in human resources, and at the beginning of this year, I decided to start a travel service.
Mm-hmm.
Because, well, the one thing that's always kind of held me back is that my area in human resources is like as working as a business partner,
Mhm.
so generalist
What does
type
that
work.
mean? Educate me. What does that mean?
Basically, I do everything on the opposite side of recruiting. So once someone starts, I work with business leaders looking at organizational effectiveness,
Mhm.
really aligning business and people strategies. But with that, it does require you to have working knowledge of the country or local laws.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And so that's been, I think, a barrier for working in Europe because although I have supported global client groups and I have clients that are in Europe, I've also had maybe a generalist who's on the ground, who has got really more like hands-on knowledge with the local laws. And so therefore, it hadn't worked out. So I came
Mhm.
close with a company for a position in Switzerland, but then they ended up hiring someone who, had just had kind of that local knowledge. So
Can you
anyway,
speak German?
you know what, I do not.
Mhm.
I do not. I
I'm just
worked on it.
curious. I'm just curious because Trina's fluent, and you made that connection, and you mentioned Switzerland where they speak German, even though it's a different type of German than what you
Oh
speak
yeah.
in. Yeah.
Oh
So
yeah.
I was just curious.
I
So,
also spent quite a bit of time in Germany because my, like my ex-boyfriend is from there, and just,
mhm,
kind of spending time with family. And I just always liked it.
Mhm.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but, with my travel service, that's also kind of using my HR background because I wanted to provide this travel service to small businesses as like an employee perk. So
Mhm,
we're like
mhm,
a travel consultant, like plan their businesses because, just from working in a small business or owning a small business,
mhm.
people have multiple responsibilities, wearing many hats. And so this is a way
Yeah.
to have, folks be able to still, allocate sufficient time for their leisure time to spend with
Mhm,
family and friends, but
mhm.
also still be focused on their work and other priorities. And
Yeah.
so it was off to a good start. And then, this pandemic hit. Uh,
That's when you said travel services, my heart just broke because you're having to rethink everything when it comes to that, or not. Or am I, I don't want to overplay it or whatever, but I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, you know, you're finding yourself having to rethink things, or what do you think?
no, I have. So it's caused me to pivot, but I mean, my two passions, have always been travel and human resources. And so
Yeah.
the two are still connected. So
Yeah.
right now I'm just trying to do more HR consulting work,
Mhm.
just because many businesses have really had to kind of rethink, how are they getting people back into the offices?
Yeah.
How are they managing the work from home? Just because that's also created many challenges as well, since you now have everyone at home
Yeah.
at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I can see my girl joined from New York. She's a singer, an entrepreneur who's actually been in Sweden, and she created a music festival um, in Sweden. It was in my hometown, and I can't believe I didn't get a chance to lay hands on her. But that's okay because I spent more time with her online than I probably would have on a one-on-one. And here's the thing, it's 14 after. I don't want to necessarily say we should start now, even though we kind of like the getting to know each other part is great. Trina's time, like all of ours, is invaluable. She's doing this for us. She brings, I just have to say, Trina is one of my sheroes. When I first moved to Sweden in 2005, I first moved to Europe in 2002 in Brussels, but when I moved to Sweden in 2005, necessity forced me to find Trina, as part of my reaching out, like wanting to be connected to other, sisters like us that are positive and doing things. And she's was immediately receptive, generous from day one. There have been times, years even, that I haven't talked to you, Trina, but when I
Yeah.
reached out to you and said, please be a part of this, you were like immediately like, of course.
Mhm.
And that's one thing I love about you and your generosity. So I know that we've all got families and time. It's 8:15. I know people can come in later because this is life, and I want to be gracious to everyone with the coronavirus times. So Trina, you can tell me if we should start now or wait 5 more minutes. Naika, I never say your name right. Please introduce yourself because we're doing that part now. Hey, Diva, there you are. There's my light. Please take this time to introduce yourself while we decide if we start now. Because I got my pen and paper ready. I need what Trina's going to teach us tonight. But I want to take this time, since we're just the four of us together, for you to introduce yourself. She's in New York City. So please introduce yourself and talk.
Yes. Hello, ladies. I'm having some, like my iPad is acting up, but right now we're going to see how it goes for how long it lasts. I dropped
Everybody's
it.
thing is acting up. Everybody's thing is acting
Yeah.
up. So
I
don't
dropped it one too many times, and you know, now we're in quarantine, and it just got to work with me until we can get it out of here.
Yeah.
But yeah, happy to be here. I'm from New York. I'm based in New York right now. I'm a part of a band, and we started a music festival in Gothenburg, Sweden, about 5 years ago. So this year we're working towards year 5 of our music festival. And can I be heard? My iPad froze on me. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm a singer-songwriter, so I'm artist across the board, and definitely am in need of some work-life balance because there is no work-life balance.
Can I ask Michelle, because the focus is on Trina tonight and her knowledge and her talents and what she's gifting us. But Michelle, can I ask you to repeat a little bit, because Nika wasn't on the call when we first started talking. So can you tell her a little bit about yourself and why you're a part of our network?
Sure. So I mentioned earlier that, I have dreams and aspirations to relocate to Europe. And that's really how I connected with these ladies many years ago. I think this is going back to like 2008.
Minimum. I know. Gosh, time goes so
Yeah,
fast.
it's been a really long time. So 2008. And I just haven't given that up. I also realized that maybe another way for me to get there is really also through my own business. And I never really saw myself as an entrepreneur. And in some ways, I still kind of don't. But I've also, over the years, just found that there are like some other needs for, say, small businesses. So I started a travel service, as you can imagine, but a travel service which would offer again, like full service travel for their employees. So it's not just business travel, but your leisure travel, because it's really all about creating memories with your families and friends.
Yeah.
Because it's important. We all work a lot, but when you're
Where
kind
are
of on
you
your
based? Where are you located? Where are you calling from right now?
I am in New York City as well.
Yeah.
So I'm in Manhattan. Yeah, I'm in Manhattan. And also I have a background in human resources. So I do a lot on also like international travel, and I'm an independent travel consultant also. And so because I work with a host agency, I love it because I'm not married to any particular vendors. So I'm not pushing any like packages or hotels, but I'm really able to find like what works well for my clients and in their price point.
Now, Nakia, why Sweden? Most people think about Stockholm. What drew you to Gothenburg?
I
Which,
cannot take credit
if Trina
for that.
and Michelle, if you don't know, I'm sorry. That's the second biggest city in
Yeah,
Sweden.
I'm familiar.
Yeah.
It's West Coast. Yes, Stockholm. Okay, yeah, Stockholm's East Coast. Gothenburg's West Coast. And so, just how did you pick Gothenburg? We're blessed that you did choose the West Coast, but how did you do that?
Yeah. Well, actually, it's the visionary behind the idea for the festival. His name is Emmerich. I guess since he was a little kid, and he grew up maybe 10 minutes away from my family home in Queens, New York, he thought that Sweden was like, in his mind, the perfect place, like with like hills and horses and stuff. So,
we got good PR, girl. We got good PR.
Yeah, he always wanted to go, and about 8 years ago, I guess he'd just been mentioning it so many times that one of his friends was like, why don't you just go? You have the time to go and do it. He is a man that does not do research, so he just looked at a map and he was like, oh, Gothenburg, that sounds like the capital, and he ended up in Gothenburg. And thankfully, he made that choice. His first trip was wonderful. He made a lot of amazing friends, and he'd been going back and forth for like 3 years. And then 5 years ago, he came to us with this idea. He was like, I want to do a music festival. And we were like, okay. So we literally flew out.
I have to say, I don't mean to cut you off, but I have to say that as much as I believe in sisterhood and that we need to do these things for ourselves, I wouldn't know you if it wasn't for a Jewish guy named Michael Greenberg.
Yeah. He was at our first festival, yeah.
who I know from Democrats Abroad, who is a musician who I didn't even know until he introduced me to you and said, Adrian, you need to know her. And I was like, okay, wow. So I think as much as these are these opportunities for us to support and promote each other, we shouldn't isolate ourselves or reject our other allies that come in different forms and shapes. And I see Trina nodding like I'm preaching to the choir, because
Exactly.
yeah. And that, like if I were just going to be like really shallow and look back at the civil rights movement in the U.S., we couldn't have done that with our allies. But I feel forever grateful to Michael Greenberg, for example, that said I know, and I met him in person and love him, and he was like, no, you got to know her. You got to know Naika, I jam with her. And I was like, wait a minute, first of all, you're a musician, so you never know what shape or form your allies are going to come in.
Yeah.
And I'm eternally grateful for that, because I feel like you're my sister. I feel like all of you on this call are my sisters. And I just wanted to bring that up, because just on the surface, if you were to look at him, you would think that, oh, do I even want to talk to him, or do I even want to spend my time? But he's put me in touch with you, and I spent so much time with you. And Michelle, you're right. We say 2008. I moved to Sweden in 2005. I mean, we may even predate that, because I know I looked up Trina, and Trina was already doing amazing things. You're one of my sheroes. You have done incredible things on your, and I want you to talk a little. I feel like now, because we have this intimate setting, that we can maybe kind of go off script.
Sure.
And I would love for you to give, if you don't mind, and let me be a little bit of Oprah, and just ask you how you got to Europe in the first place, how Germany, your journey to being fluent, having your family, you have this beautiful family there, you have this incredible reputation for being a thought leader and a life coach, a business coach, like not only do you work one-on-one with people, but you work with corporations.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us like a little bit about your background, please?
Okay, yeah, of course. And I'm happy, because especially with the the flexibility that we have, because we are such a small group, it would be a shame if we tried to stick to a script and try to sort of be straight and narrow. Let's take this freedom and make really good use of it. To your question, Adrian, I'm actually I was born in Camden, New Jersey, but I grew up in Pennsylvania. And let me see, I went to school there, and I just had the situation where one of my uncles was married to a German woman. And when I was about in the 5th grade or 6th grade, they came back to the States from Germany, and I got to meet this new aunt. And my 2 older cousins at the time were small, and at home she always spoke German to the children. So whenever I was there, I heard German. And I started picking it up. You pick up a little word, you pick up a little phrase. And soon I wasn't anywhere near fluent, but I could speak baby German. So when it got time for me to select a foreign language in high school, we at our school actually did have German as a option, and I picked German.
Can I say Kinder Deutsch? Is that
yeah, Kinderdeutsch, yeah. It was basically Kinderdeutsch. And fast forward a few years, and I had an opportunity when I was 14 to actually come to Germany as an exchange student. And I was blown away. I had the good fortune of going to one of the most beautiful regions of the country, a country which admittedly has a lot of beautiful regions, and also stay with an absolutely wonderful family. So although I was in this very small town setting, in this very probably, quite conservative area environment, when I went back to suburban Philadelphia,
my fault, Trina. I'm sorry. I muted everybody. Give me a second to unmute you. because there was, I think, because Nika has gone from one to the other. Sorry, my bad. But again, I'm asking for you guys grace while we navigate this. This is new for me too. Trina, you're back on. Can we hear you?
That's wonderful. I
Okay,
just
thank
said,
you.
I was just saying that returning to sort of suburban Philadelphia, I went through an extreme culture shock.
Mhm.
Not because I had been in any big cities or whatever, or I had visited big cities, but it was just the idea that, especially for a little Black girl, there was a whole world out there
Yeah.
that I didn't realize or
Bigger than your backyard, huh?
Exactly. But not only the world bigger than my backyard, but a lot of the things that I thought I needed to be, I realized that's not true. I can be whatever, because at this time I'm a 14-year-old girl. I'm listening to David Bowie. I'm listening to Elton John. I'm listening to T-Rex and whatever, and people that what's wrong with you?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
So then, I came back to Europe. I actually went from being a straight A student to being, F's, D's, C's, because I was just gone. And at some point, I had the good fortune of having a very engaged guidance counselor. And he basically called me to his office one day and said, listen, we know you can do the work. That's not the problem. You've just
Yeah.
simply outgrown this.
Yeah.
You got to move on.
Yeah.
Talk to your parents and see if they would allow you to graduate from high school at the end of your 11th grade.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, he said if you just have to look how many credits you need. You have to, hey, put your nose to the grind and do it. But ask them if they would allow it. I went back to my father, and he basically said, he looked at like the F in algebra and the D in science, and he was like, sure, kid. Sure. And at the end of the day, I not only graduated at the end of the 11th grade, but I held the baccalaureate speech for our
But wait a
graduate.
minute, Trina, I have to ask you, how old are you at 11th grade? That's 16.
I was 16. I came to Germany. I landed in Germany 2 weeks. Oh no, actually in France, because that was another little twist to my story. But I landed in France 2 weeks before my 17th birthday.
Wow.
Yeah. And I always joke and say that my parents were waiting for me to come home from my year abroad. In the meantime, it's been 40 plus years.
Would you consider yourself a mature, were you a mature 16-year-old, would you think, if you're looking back?
Yes and no. In some ways I was, definitely. But you know how it often is, you don't know what you don't know. And looking back, obviously, I realized how much I didn't know, but I obviously did better, or at least managed to stay out of major harm's way along the way, because, within, I had 1 year, the year I spent in France when I did live in like a sort of a dorm type of situation. And after that, it was just basically student life. And then at some point I got married and, whatever. But yeah.
Okay, I have to ask you, how old were you when you got married the first time?
I was actually young. I was not quite 20. I was not quite 20.
Oh, you were a babe, a child.
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah. I think that's one of the things, you do look for then, okay, what's going to stabilize me? What's going to give me an anchor? And I saw too many people, the drugs, the parties, the alcohol, the whatever, and that's fine. I'm not, looking down my nose on anyone because of that, because, hey, I was out there too. But I knew that wasn't the whole thing, and this is not the road I wanted to go down indefinitely. And so I think that first marriage really was kind of okay, I need an anchor. I need some stability for myself.
Can I ask you, were you considered the exotic when you came at that young age? Like, how did that shape or inform your experience?
I think at that time, because when I came to Germany then, when I moved back after the year I spent in France, I was in Heidelberg. So that was the headquarters of the 7th Army. people were used to seeing, you know, Black GIs in their families, whatever. So that wasn't really that exotic.
Mhm.
I think the exotic part about it was the way I straddled. I had no connection to the American community other than, you know, saying hi to a GI in a club or in a restaurant, you know, or, oh, you speak English, you speak German, can you help me? I didn't have that. And so a lot of people's assumptions were thrown asunder simply because, well, here was this kid at university and here she was, you know, living quote unquote, well, kind of a mix of a German and expat life. But I've always had expat friends, but I've always had a lot of local connections as well.
I
So
want
I,
to go back to that later. Can we please take notes on that? Because I think that's
yeah,
important.
yeah.
Um, how you position yourself, because I know, and I hate to interject, but I think that was important for my experience when I first moved to well, it was forced on me because when I first moved to Europe full time, it was under the GW Bush era, and I was in
Mhm.
Belgium, and people were very aggressive, like, are you for or against the war, are you,
Yeah.
you
Hmm.
know, and I had to almost take camps and sides. And
Hmm.
I worked at the American Chamber of Commerce for Belgium, and it was like, don't hang out with Americans. And then you think like, okay, am I American? Am I not? Do I want to be an expat? What does that mean? So you had a different experience, and your experience gave you a choice to say, I'm with the Americans or not, but you didn't long necessarily to be in the American community,
No, not at
right?
all. I had the experience. I mean, my father was Air Force. He was Air Force Reserve until his retirement, and he had been active duty, you know, for a time while I was young. I had this feeling that if I wanted to hang around with a bunch of Americans, I could have stayed in
You
Philly.
could have stayed home. That was
You
my
know,
point. I could
I
do
could have
this
stayed in
there.
Philly. You
Yeah,
know, and
yeah,
so from that, it was never that I ran away from Americans. That wasn't the point. And like I said, I knew, you know, I worked with a girl who I worked for a company that was under contract. It was a joint venture with a German and an American company, and they were under contract to the American Army. And I met this other Black girl there who was there for whatever reason, and we became great friends. And so it
yeah,
wasn't like I was running away, but
yeah,
you know, I was not buying at the PX or commissary. I was buying at the local mini mall. You know,
yeah,
I wasn't hanging out necessarily at the Black or American clubs. I went
yeah,
there too. I
yeah,
went there too. But I also went to, you know, Whiskey A Go Go and Shepherd's Lounge and all of these other places where the Germans or other, like, all there were Brits and there were, you know, other
So
people too.
your first husband, and I don't mean to presume that you've been married more than one time. I'm on my third and final marriage. I like to say it's like, you know, what's that game show? Like, is that your final answer? I swear, you
Yeah.
ever see my final, you know, and that's it. But what was your first husband German?
Yes, he was. Yes, yeah.
And German in the sense like German, not like
Yeah. No, yeah,
your kids are German. You know what I mean? Like your kids are
no,
German.
yes, they are. But no, he was German. He is German. He still is around.
Yeah.
His mother was from the Saarland, and his father was from Pomerania, which is now a part of Poland after the Second World War. So that
Okay.
they basically fled during the Second World War and
Okay.
settled in this part of Germany. As
Geographically, north, south, east, west. Help
well,
me.
Pomerania is basically Poland up by the Baltic, like near the Baltic Sea.
Okay. Okay.
And that all was annexed after the war by the Russians. It was
Okay.
part of Poland, but of course part of the, you know, the whole expanse of
Yeah.
Sovietdom, you know.
Yeah.
And like I said, my mother-in-law, her family was from the Saarland, from Saarbrücken, which is down by France. And her father was a bigwig Nazi.
Oh God.
Yeah, yeah. Her father was a very bigwig Nazi who
God.
was dead by the time I came into the family. But
But still,
also
his
one of her
legacy.
sisters was married to a Black GI. So at that point, the family had just sort of, you know.
Yeah. That's so interesting. That's another call. Yeah.
Yeah. It's always interesting when you know, see how how things shift. I mean, he was apparently such a bigwig that he had his own train car when he had to do official business stuff
Oh, wow.
So,
Okay.
but they were actually, however, store owners. They had a small, like, grocery store kind of, thing before the war. And then he became very involved in the party and made the necessary, the
Yeah.
necessary career as it goes.
Yeah.
And yeah, so, that got me to Germany, and I studied here and started working here, actually teaching English, which is a way, teaching business English, which is a way a lot of people get started. But
Yeah.
then I segued out, and I was actually, for 25 years, I was a marketing and advertising executive here in Germany.
For what kind of companies? Like, was it in different stages? Did you work for big corporations? What was that?
I worked for what was at the time Germany's second largest advertising agency.
Oh,
And
wow.
I had category management responsibility for the client that is now, in the meantime, GlaxoSmithKline. So that
Okay, pharma.
no, I was with Oral Care, with their Oral Care line.
Oh,
And I also did their over-the-counter drugs. And I was responsible for their German business, but I was also later responsible for their expansion into Central and Eastern Europe.
can I ask you a question? If you were to compare that experience, and hi, Stephanie. Stephanie just joined us. And Stephanie, because we're such an intimate group, we're kind of going off script, and we're just talking. And I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you could do your video just for a second so we can see your gorgeous face, just so we, you don't have to, but just, and Nika, I'm going to recruit you to do like a hair tying wrap tie. Hey, Stephanie.
Hey, here I am. I'm like on 2 Zoom meetings at once because I was supposed to be listening to the one from work. And then I'm like, but I want to be on this one. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Where are you calling in from real quickly so we get back to Trina?
I'm from California.
Fabulous.
Wonderful.
Fabulous. So, okay, so I love this. I love that we're doing this. I love this. Thank you for calling in from California. But Trina was just giving us an insight to her fascinating background, and just quickly to catch you up to speed. She's been like a mentor and an inspiration to me since I moved full-time to Sweden in 2005. When I reached out and tried to find other Black women doing positive things, Trina was there immediately. And I remember, Trina, I said, oh, I think I'm going to do this Black Women in Europe blog. You were like, girl, yeah, do this. This is great. You were always supportive and inspirational, and I would just always admire you. But I can't roll the band, as they say in Swedish, roll back, but just to catch you up, Trina's telling us how she first got to Germany. She did that when she was 16, and how she integrated and got in. But I was just asking you, like, if you were to compare your experience working for a big company, like, do you feel like you had more opportunity in Germany as a Black woman to do what you did, or like, could you have had that same experience in America working for a big company? I just wonder.
It's difficult to say. I mean, obviously there are other examples of Black women my age who've made similar and much better careers. I think I came in at just because of the way I was positioned in Germany. It gave me opportunities that maybe I wouldn't have had.
Yeah.
I can remember one of the most, I have to say the following, one of the most sobering experiences I ever had was the following. Germans are very linear and very kind of, do it by the book.
Swedes are that way too.
Yeah, they're very, very linear, very do it by the book. I don't have a background in advertising. I studied literary criticism and art history. So when I was beginning to apply at ad agencies, I had a lot of German friends saying, why are you doing that? You're not qualified to do that.
Wow. Yeah.
but because it's the way Germans think. It's the way Germans think. Because
it's not a criticism necessarily. It's just a matter of fact. Yeah.
It's the way they think. Because for example, when I was still at university, or just as I came out of university, a lot of the people that I studied with had studied to be teachers.
Yeah.
In America, teaching is a job. I mean, it's a career, but it's like if you don't teach after you get your degree, you don't teach, you do something
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
In Germany, you're a teacher. And if you tell somebody you study teaching and you have your certificate and you're doing something else, they want to know what's wrong with you. What went
Wow.
wrong in your life that you are not doing what you are because you are a teacher? You're not a, I don't know, a boutique owner or a, you know,
So it's
whatever.
kind of like you decide early, this is the career track you're going to take, and you're supposed to do that. And if you don't do that, something's wrong.
Also, and because I mean, obviously things have changed dramatically in the last 20 years. But you have to see that for many Germans, your career was linear. You started off somewhere, you moved forward, and then you hoped to retire from the same, hey, if possible, from the same company. You know. And obviously life has changed dramatically. But the incident I was actually going to tell you about was something totally different. I did get this advertising job. I actually got a job that somebody told me I would never get, because they were trying to help me get a job in advertising, but in a slightly different way. And I said, no, this is what I want to do. And I got that job. And I was in a situation where internationally people were in the agency and someone struck up a conversation with me. And I was talking a little bit about my background and saying, you know, I did this, that, and the other, and I've been here and I'm doing this, that, and the other, and so forth. And that person looked at me and said, oh, that was a lot of luck.
Ah.
The only person in my whole career who has ever told me I was only there because I was lucky was an American.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Everybody else was fascinated or, you know, whatever. Oh, wow, great. This is wonderful. Or, you know, oh, you were lucky.
How did you take that? How did that make you feel?
I looked at him and said, no, I work hard.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's what you do. No, I work hard.
Thank you. Hey, and I can see the reaction from Michelle and Nakia's face. And Stephanie's like, what? Yeah, you worked. Do you find that to be true, that people want to kind of discount our achievements to luck? Or
I think, you know, I was watching, I don't even know what it was, probably one of these just retro things where, you know, on Facebook they say 50 years ago this happened, and 25 years ago that happened. And I happen to remember the rivalry between the basketball player Larry Bird, and I
remember him and Magic Johnson.
And one of the things that he always said, when Larry Bird does something, he's smart and he's, you know, whatever. And if I do something, it's because, oh, well, it's biology, or it's, you know, something I don't have any control over, you know. And I was reminded of that really just this week, where there's always some supernatural hoodoo going on, instead of, no, I sit my butt in the seat.
Yeah.
I did the work that needed to be done.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the short and long of it. I mean, obviously, you know, nobody's perfect. I look back and see things I could have done differently, could have done. Of
course.
Better. But as Maya Angelou said, you do the best with what you know. When you know better, you do better.
You do better. Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate that, Trina. How long have you been in Germany?
Oh Lord, I came back to Germany and moved to Germany after my year in France in 1975. So what is that, 44 years?
Girl, what? That's a long time.
Yeah.
Is it ever a point where you feel more German than American?
Socialized, yeah. When I think about it, other than summer jobs or something like that, I never worked, for example, in America. I was just telling, we have an au pair, and I was just telling her a couple of days ago, I was just telling her, I said, because I was so young when I came here, there were certain things that I had never experienced directly in America that I didn't even have the vocabulary for, simply because I didn't do it. You know, it was something that my parents took care of, or we didn't do that. I mean, something as simple as I mean, in the meantime, I know, of course, but in Germany, I didn't have a car when I was young. I always took the train, took the bus. So I knew this was a track, and this was a platform, and this was a whatever. I didn't know that in English. at the time because we didn't go anywhere by train. We lived in suburban Philadelphia. We were driven everywhere.
Yeah.
And then you pick it up, of course, as you go along, but you realize that I didn't have that adult vocabulary because while I was in the States, I wasn't doing adult things.
And again, Stephanie, you came late, but I kind of going off the Oprah track, and I'm going to ask Trina a couple more questions before I let her get into her presentation. But can you, and this probably isn't a fair question, but having raised a family in Germany, as you have children, you have grandchildren, how can you see, based on what you know from the people that you still have in the States, the advantages that you've had doing that in Germany or in Europe in general? If you could compare that to the States, like, for example, I know in Sweden, it's very work-life balance. When we lived in Stockholm, if you had a baby buggy, you can get on the bus like in the back and didn't have to pay your fare, like it was free to get on. What they call a mama-letic or papa-letic, like paternity leave and maternity leave is so built into the culture. Like, can you imagine building the family that you built in the States the way you've been able to do it in Germany?
I don't think so. I think, although obviously a lot of people have successful families in the States, that's not the point.
We come from those ourselves.
Yeah. I think the big difference is, like you said, number one, I mean, it breaks down a lot to values.
Yeah.
What do we hold dear?
Yeah.
In America, there is a much stronger focus. I mean, as I mentioned before, very stupid example, but it really, in a nutshell, brings it across. I used to work doing advertising for OTC medicines, and we used to do
OTC meaning over the counter.
Over the counter.
Right.
The counter. Yeah, sorry about that. Over the counter medicines. And we did international competitive reels just to see what are people doing with similar products in different places of the world. Now, we did a cold and flu medicine, for example. And in Germany, our copy was basically, you take this warm stuff, you sit down, you wrap yourself up, you get some sleep, and in a few days you'll feel better and you can go about your life again. Think about cold and flu medicine in the States. In the States, it's take it so you can go to work in the morning.
Exactly.
So you can get up and really, and it was like, no, I'm not going to go to work in the morning. I'm sick. I'm going to lay down. I'm going to keep my bacteria at home.
And that's so relevant for right now with the
better.
pandemic. I'm worried about my sisters where you guys are, where they're maybe, I don't know. I hope you don't feel forced to go back into the workforce. But Trina, in Germany, we were talking last week, because your grandkids are going to start to go back to school.
One has already started, yeah.
Okay, so how do you feel about that? Is there been an aggressive move back to normality there?
She goes to school 1 day a week. At her school, they made the decision that each grade at the elementary school level would have their day. Mm-hmm. The children wear masks on the playground and masks in the hallway, and they reduced the size of the classes. And she already had a small class, but they reduced the size of the classes so that within the scope of the classroom, they don't have to wear masks and they can still uphold social distancing. I think one of the bigger problems that especially the children are having, and especially the younger children are having, is isolation. They're isolated from their playmates, from people their own age. And although I understand that there is a risk, I am actually in favor of this gradual, let's see what happens. And at her school, the plan is, and the reason that at the last minute they actually changed their original plan to the plan I just mentioned. The reason that they did that is that, if you know what, if we have only the 4th grade on this day and one child happens to get sick, we don't have to puzzle around where did it come from and what's going on. We can just say we're sending the 4th grade home. And we can disinfect the building, and we can still keep the 3rd and the 2nd and the 1st grade or whatever. We can still keep them there. but because we know it's isolated, and we know that we have contained as strongly as possible the group of children who are present.
Yeah. Stephanie, let me give you a chance just to introduce yourself, because we know Michelle is in New York and Nika is in New York as well. I'm in Sweden, Trina's in Germany. And then we're going to get into Trina's presentation. But just quickly, if you want to say where you're you say California, but where in California? Oh, I have to unmute.
I just moved to California. I've been to several places in the United States, but I'm originally from New York, so I just moved to California. There was a better career opportunity here for me, so I've taken that. So I'm
And
a
what is that
librarian
opportunity? What's that opportunity?
A librarian here at Oakland Public Library.
Girl, I love books. You're in Oakland.
Ooh.
Thank you. Fantastic. Okay. Let me give okay. How long have you been in Oakland?
Since May 1st, literally since May 1st.
Oh, you just there. How did you settle in and find a place to live and everything? I know. How did you do that?
Remotely, and it was pretty difficult.
Well, how are you doing with that?
It's okay. It's kind of weird because I'm here and working from home during this COVID. So yeah.
And Nika, God, I hate that I murder your name. And Michelle, just quickly introduce yourselves in that order to Stephanie so we get her up to date, and then we can go into Trina's presentation.
Can you guys hear me? Can you ladies hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay, because yes, now the Bluetooth works. All right, great. Yeah, I'm a singer-songwriter, born and raised in New York. I've done a lot of traveling back and forth to Gothenburg, Sweden, because one of the bands that I'm a part of, we decided to co-found a music festival in Sweden. So that is how I know Adrienne, through a mutual friend that I met through our festival. And that is why I follow her everywhere that she goes.
Girl,
she
you
creates.
just blessed me being a part of it. We're going to do a thing because I want to learn how to wrap my hair up like you do. I love that.
I'll teach you. Yes.
And one thing I can tell you about Nika, we were on a workshop together. Trina, I don't know where you were, but we were all together. You guys know each other because we were on that meditation workshop. Yeah. But Nika has a 4-hour morning routine. Okay. And we can find 40 minutes to do that for ourselves. So she's all about self-love, but she's a creative person as well. You guys are so special. You know,
I don't have any kids. I don't have any kids yet, so I gotta soak it up as long as possible.
But one thing you said about that I admire, that you got family responsibilities that you take seriously. It's not necessarily your own kids, but you're not just out there on an island. You feel connected and responsible to your family, but you still find time for that, and that gives the best to your family. And Michelle has been in our network since we were debating whether it was 2005 or earlier. But Michelle, please tell Stephanie a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, hi Stephanie. I'm Michelle Green. I live in New York City. I've been in New York City now for 22 years. And I have a travel service that I started earlier this year before the COVID-19 pandemic. What else?
Michelle, you say New York for 22 years. Where were you before that?
I was in North Carolina before that, and I'm originally from Jamaica.
Okay.
So I moved to the U.S. I moved to
because
New
Jersey, from Caribbean too. Yeah.
So I moved to New Jersey. Gosh, I think I was about probably 9, 10 years of age. So I've been in the States for a long time because I'm now 51. And
well, 58. Yeah. This is what 58 looks like, But Stephanie, are you from the States originally?
Yeah, I am. I'm from New York originally. I'm from Brooklyn.
Okay, Brooklyn in the house. And Trina's from suburban Philadelphia. Tell me the city, or the township.
Well, we Like I said, I was born in Camden, New Jersey. My mom was living in Camden, New Jersey. My father is actually from the Harrisburg, Pennsylvania area,
Okay.
so Dauphin County, Pennsylvania. And we basically moved with his job to Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, which is right outside of Philadelphia.
What kind of work did he do?
He was in the Air Force, and he also worked as a civilian for the Air Force. So
Okay.
he was not only a reservist later on, but he also was a civilian working at the Willow Grove Naval Air Station.
You said that. Now I'm just going to quickly go to what, because we went a little bit off script, which I think is fabulous. It's so good to connect with you guys. You guys feed my soul. Like, this is why we're doing this. But if you didn't know, you know, I started Black Women in Europe in 2006, like I said, and that's when I moved from I moved from DC to Brussels in 2002. In 2005, I think I met this Swedish guy I ended up married to. And when I came to Sweden, I was like, oh my God, I got to meet Black women. Trina is one of the first ones that I met. And I reached out to her and said, do you think I'm crazy trying to do this Black Women in Europe blog thing? She was like, girl, no, do it, you know, do your thing. And she's always been a supporter. We haven't always been in touch, but it's like the type of thing that we don't have to, because she's always had my back. And she's always been there to mentor me and give me advice. I've always admired her for what she's doing. So she's been like the wings under or the wind under my wings type of thing. And when, as we were talking about being on that meditation call, Naked was there, and she talked about like a morning routine, and I started listening to meditation music, and this thing came to me that I should do this workshop because we're in this pandemic. And I was like, oh my God, we have so many resources. We can do this for each other. So Trina is here, and all this is for free. You know this, that she's doing this for us to talk about how we can have balance. And to me, what's so important about that is like, it doesn't matter if it's just through the pandemic. These are tools that we can use in everyday life. And Trina, as we've heard her say, is not just a business coach, she's a personal coach. So if after this call, something that she says resonates with you, you can reach out to Trina and she can help you figure it out one-on-one. But also if you're in a company environment, she's somebody that you can recommend, because I think we were talking a couple of weeks ago and you thought, oh yeah, I've got this client presentation to do, but with the pandemic, it's going to change. They still wanted you to come down, and they figured out how to socially distance.
Yeah.
And do these things. Yeah.
Well, we did a 2-day workshop.
You did a 2-day workshop. So
yeah.
Trina is a fantastic source of inspiration, guidance, and knowledge. And like I say, I've got my pen and paper ready to take my notes. And she's agreed to talk to us today about work-life balance, because I know I'm off kilter. So I need to get back, because I've found, even though I've been working from home and online since 2005, with so many things moving online because of the pandemic, I'm like, I got this huge crick in my, you know, I'm just on the computer too much. So Trina, please educate us, you know, as drop some knowledge, some gems. I think we talked about there were some points that you were going to give us. And as you say in your description, there's no one size fits all, but please share with us what you can. And thank you so much for being here. Thank you, ladies, for joining. I'm so glad that we have this intimate group that we can actually talk and share. And you know what? I'm going to turn off the recording now so that we can get